Edition of the Nantucket Historic District Commission. Good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of the Nantucket Historic District Commission. It is Thursday, just after 3:30, October 17th. We are here to review Surfside Crossing submission. What I'd like to do, unless somebody feels they've got a different approach, this in order to not make note to you. Project for someone, not on a micro level, just this.
Connie, you look bewildered like me.
Yeah, they're frozen, right?
Yeah, the internet connection's bad in that room.
Oh, it's kind of like our meeting Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, you could just pull them up and the three of us could comment on it.
Okay,
There you go.
oh, it is just the three of us now.
Yeah. Does this go right behind your property?
It's right adjacent to me. So our property faces, well, you've been there. It faces 11 South Shore, and then the long property line to our side is Surfside
Oh,
Crossing.
I see your business is actually in the locus. It says Chip Webster Architecture right next to the rectangle.
Yeah. I'm about as close as you can get.
You are. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So is this it's an Andrew Kotchin design, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's well, I guess I'm not supposed to comment on that, so I won't comment on that.
Well, I'm not a board member, so I can comment. I think that's actually a good thing. I mean, it's probably going to be nicer than if it was, just someone not familiar with Island.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. I think it implies some careful planning and consideration, and I think that feedback will be taken seriously. So that's all good.
I can't find the design. I know it was sent to us.
You know what, Connie, this was sent. I'm going back to an email that was sent on October 2nd with links to
okay.
buildings.
Let me go back that far. Yeah, I thought something came more recent, but let's see. October.
I'm forwarding you that email right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. It has a site plan attachment, and it has floor plan attachments, but it also has links to the different building types.
I remember bringing it up and looking at it when we first got it.
We might need to get off this and for them to reinitiate the meeting. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, me too. And then we'll sign back in.
Connie is here.
Okay, so I don't know what I captured on the recording, guys. What we're gonna do, based on the discussion we've had here, is we're gonna review the site plan. We'll take individual comments. We'll move on to the three types of buildings. We'll take individual comments on in a rotation on elevations on building type 1. Then we'll move to building type 2 and then building type 3. If you have detailed comments, architectural elements or otherwise, very detailed about like gang windows or anything like that, feel free to submit it, but do it after the fact in a email to Holly. And I think that kind of covers it, so we can go back to getting started. On the Zoom, guys, the reason that I hadn't suggested Zoom was because historically in this room, signal gets lost, and it turns out that the people who are participating via Zoom don't actually get a chance to participate. And if they don't know that in advance, they don't make plans to show up. Not suggesting you could have changed your plans, but for future reference, if we meet here, typically, if you participate via Zoom, you don't participate. Val had commented on the site plan. Carrie had commented on the site plan. Holly has some notes. Connie, do you have any comments on the site plan?
I'm good.
Okay, Joe?
You're muted, Joe.
He's not.
Yeah, he's not, but we can't hear you. Oh,
Now he is.
yep. See your mouth. Can see you moving, but can't hear you, Joe.
Okay, try again in a minute. Ray? Any thoughts on the site plan?
At the moment, no.
Okay, so I just concur with Carrie and Bill's prior comments. I'll highlight, I think, the concept of South Shore Road is the most important, and that it should represent, at least from on the second floor level, something akin to typical Nantucket. And when I say something, I mean it should represent structures akin to typical Nantucket. And the identity within the community is important as well, but it's a different level because it's within the subdivision itself. Overall, I think the density is too great, and in terms of the overall massing on the lot, but that's where that one stands. Can we go to the Joe? He's trying to log back in.
Yeah.
Holly, can we go to, I don't know, pick a building? And we'll look at the elevations.
There's 6,000 pages. Seriously? Yeah.
There's one.
This is the community building. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
community building, Val took the time to make some prepared notes. I'd like to see hear what you have to say.
Well, I didn't go building by building. I mostly just made global comments. That all of the structures are expansive. They do have a main mass and some additive massing, but it's primarily mostly the same, and they're just turned differently on the lot. The buildings are all over 30 feet. The first floor height's 9.7, the second floor is 8.7. That could reduce to bring some down. And on this building, like you said, I didn't do any specifics. I don't think it needs 2 cupolas.
Okay,
And for me, the chimneys are wide in one direction and skinny the other direction. That's my global comments. And there's except with the exception of this building, there's no front doors. All the doors are French. So you don't even, it's not like you can differentiate one unit from another.
right. So fenestration is atypical, the massing is atypical and tie. The adornments like the cupola are atypical along those lines. Anything else? Is that kind of your comments on this building overall?
Well, and you'll see when you start looking, they're all, the global comments can cover most. They have an option for standing seam roofs, which I don't think
Mhm.
we need to introduce.
Right, okay, that's a good highlight. Will you maybe, I think this just trying to evolve as we go, would you just scroll through and then we'll take Ray's comments on the structure and then Carrie's, and then we'll check in to see if Connie, can we hear you?
I think so, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
cool, okay, so then we'll get you after Carrie and then we'll go from there. Are we on the same structure or a different one?
That's type B.
Yeah, let's go, just if we stick to that first structure.
Sorry, actually,
Go
that
on.
might be, they might have an abyss on that one too.
Okay, Ray, thoughts? Anything you want to-
Okay, so this is the community building.
Mhm.
Is this a standalone, like it's not, it's different than all the other prototypes?
It's in the middle with the
Well,
pool.
I know that, but like, is it, there's no other buildings like this is a standalone.
Correct.
Okay, as a standalone building, I actually don't mind it. It's simple. You know, there's some architectural details about it. Like this big bank of windows on the left-hand side of the, what appears to be the north elevation. And then a huge long row of French doors. You know, those are small. The double cupola thing I agree with, you know, don't need to, certainly. But as overall massing, I think it's not so bad. So, those are my comments.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, I'm with Ray. I actually think this is a good looking building for what it's being used as. I reiterate the double cupola seems silly and yeah, just a lot of fenestration, which, you know, we try to minimize. So any minimization of that would be great, but I totally agree with Ray. I think the massing is good.
Okay, thanks. Connie?
You're muted, Connie.
So I looked at this when Holly first sent it out, and I think Val hit on it. I think overall I was, the height of the buildings and especially on this one, some of the adornments, like the cupolas, just seemed a little out of place, and I think the overall height of the buildings are pretty high. And I think that kind of goes for most of them.
Thank you. Angus? We're
Hi.
trying to speak on the individual buildings. Did you get a chance to look at this one?
This is the kind of the clubhouse.
Yeah,
Yeah. So actually, I appreciated the proportions in general. I mean, the amount of glazing and the rolling doors over the, you know, the French doors and extra windows above. You know, for a large structure, I kind of like the idea of it feeling like this is a barn attachment to a, you know, some sort of larger house. The chimneys seem high, and the double cupola seemed awkward. But I think in general, if height could come down wherever possible, that would be appreciated.
thank you. Joe, are you there?
No,
No, Ray?
I just had a question, and I'm sorry, I'm coming in cold on this. What is the proposed color palette of this compound?
I don't believe it gave us colors.
Yeah.
It did.
You know, given the size and the density of this, I would like it to be really muted. You know, gray tones rather than whites.
And not black fenestration either,
Right.
because all those buttons in black is
Yeah,
just way
it'd
too
be
much.
very aggressive. You know, gray tones would be preferred.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, color was gonna be my overarching comment or concern. On this one, I think that better proportion chimney and cupolas would be more appropriate because they're oversized to make the mass look smaller, I presume. And it's gonna look like a caricature of these when it's actually built. They're gonna look very odd if they're that large. I don't want to focus on just a specific architectural element, except for these are gonna be the most visible architectural elements on this structure.
Well, conversely, if they're too small, they're gonna look really silly too.
That's
So getting it
why
right
I
is gonna
said the appropriate proportion is gonna be important.
be- Yeah,
Can we scroll down just a little bit, to the next elevation? I'm sorry, one more, the next sheet, I mean. Okay, and then back up to what would be the front. So 2 sheets up. Just in terms of massing, I think that the rightmost massing is just, it's unnecessarily large. I think it could, with a coplanar element, with a roof broken, slightly lower top plate or something of that nature, it would be more successful. These are gonna look, I mean, as we all know, they're gonna look different in real life. And I think that's gonna really kind of jump out. Then again, they're gonna put trees and other things, so,
Could I mention one thing?
yeah, please.
One thing I noticed on this, while it has a central mass and then these flanking sides, which I think are a little disproportionate. It screams that there should be a door right here, in the center mass of this structure versus, and because it's centralized, like I look at this and I think, well, maybe this could have been a large federal style structure, and then these are the added L's over time, especially with the flanking cupolas. And building with Nantucket in mind specifically says you don't, not to have entrances off of those side L's, so I think that should be an overarching comment on the facade.
I don't object to that.
Can you scroll up just to the floor plan? I just wanted to take a look. at it. I thought, yeah, there was. There it is.
Oh, it's not on this one.
So what is that labeled? That room,
Community room.
community room, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it looks more traditional that way. I get why they probably didn't do it that way, but I think it looks more traditional that way. Angus, did you want to add something?
Oh, I mean, I think this is such a departure from anything that would be in the guidelines, as far as orientation and scale and, all of it. I almost appreciate the simplicity of that, that 6-bay facade, in itself, because once there's a door, then you want like a little portico or a porch roof or something, and then it starts to really bring into to mind the scale that this is, which is really big.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of this as a smaller version of, I mean, it's nothing like it, but in terms of use and fenestration, a smaller version of the Boys and Girls Club. So there's an entryway, it needs to be delineated as such, but the rest of the building, as Angus was just saying, doesn't really tie into the concept of a residential structure. Unlike, I think the other buildings need to have a strong sense of a residential structure, because these fenestrations are gonna denote that this is not someone's house. For the, I don't know how many 6 million individuals are gonna live there, whatever the population, obviously a little hyperbole there, not mean spirited at all, just, there's gonna be a lot of people there. Okay, did you said Joe's coming over?
Joe's driving over.
Okay, can we go to the next building? So that's 1 of 4.
That's the only one like that.
Yeah. And Holly, which is meant to be the front? Is it the left side of this?
Well,
That we don't see the elevation? Is it one of the next elevations?
So hard to tell.
Yeah,
I know, that was part
That's
of
the
the
other
problem.
problem, community building.
They
Yeah,
want
that's
French
so it's
doors.
down, in the next sheet down.
It must be, yeah.
And then another sheet, they probably show this section and then I couldn't tell which one was meant to be the front.
I don't think there is meant to be
It
a
doesn't-
front.
doesn't look it at all.
The
Um,
A2, I think, are along the street, along South Shore.
Okay, hey, Joe.
And he appears.
So, okay, well, let's start at the top, and obviously one of the concerns is the sense of entry.
Yes,
Let's see, who went first last time? Val, you've written yours down, why don't you go ahead? You've got
Okay.
it down.
my overarching thing is that all the buildings, as you'll see, looking through them, have a large middle mass and then wings appended to them, which is typically a good thing. But the proportions don't seem to me to be right, and they're just turning them on the site, so there's not a huge variation. So the buildings overwhelmingly, to me, seem the same. They're very generic and banal. Not one of them has a front door, which, where would you go in? Every single door is a French door. So I find that to be like a hotel kind of concept, and I already said the thing about all of them are over 30 feet. the chimney proportions, the standing seam roof. And the ones with the abyss, the lower area seemed too expansive, and there was nothing to show me or tell me on the very simple floor plan, when you go to the individual packages of the buildings, is it retained? Will there be a fence? How are people gonna keep from falling in or going down there? So that wasn't clear to me either.
Okay, thank you. Holly, will you go back up to the top? We'll go to, Ray again, I guess. Anything to add or?
Well, listen, these are big buildings, but oddly, what's happening in my brain right now is I'm comparing these things to what we have already approved far too many of over in our area over at
Richmond,
Richmond. I wanted to use another term to describe it, but I was searching for the proper one, Richmond. And I really feel like these buildings, for some reason, seem more thoughtfully designed. I mean, we're actually seeing some single-story massing here, which is something you don't see at all over there. I agree with Val's comments. And I do think that something could be done to work on the height, and it's now becoming, more apparent to me that the density of these buildings on the site, they're all large buildings, not necessarily horribly designed, but the density is really the main issue. I didn't see any room to breathe on that big site plan that we had reviewed initially. So that's what I have to say.
Thanks. Let's see, Joe.
I'm not sure I have too much more to add. The repetitive nature was concerning to me. With respect to the site plan, I mean, all the buildings being pushed to the outside and having openness in the center where the community building is seemed a positive. But anybody that's abutting these properties, I think they're not gonna experience a sense of openness. But as you move through this, it seems like there'll be a sense of openness based on the site plan, but the repetitive nature was concerning to me. I, again, was happy to see like single-story masses and these salt box forms. Some of like the fragments of like the right-hand side of the bottom elevation and the left-hand side are attractive, but there's definitely a lot of building volume there, which I'm assuming is supposed to be mitigated by the abyss that Val has coined. I think that, I mean, the alternative is that the buildings get taller in order to get more light and more use out of the footprint, and they've done it by this excavation and exposing this, which I think is an interesting approach. And I think Val made a good point about whether or not these actually address the street as you drive around. I'm happy to see who they're working with as a, I mean, I don't know if we're not supposed to speak to that specifically, but we know that the firm itself is generally sensitive, even though they tend to do some contemporary, but it's a spin on rural vernacular. And I'm encouraged by their engagement with the project, because I think that they'll take our concerns seriously and have a thoughtful response to them. It's not a specific comment on the design, but it feels like if we were looking for more variety between building types, that I think they could skillfully move it in that direction.
Thanks, Joe. Connie?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. My concern is, again, the overall height. And I just feel that these are large buildings and they're just overwhelming this site. There's so many of them and they're large. And, I guess I appreciate the simplicity, but also I'd like to see some kind of, I don't know, individuality, something that, you know, speaks to the actual vernacular of what they are. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see, Angus and Carrie.
I'm happy to go. Again, you know, it's height, like when we're looking at this north elevation, if we're gonna say that the middle section is the primary, that the left side needs to be, you know, more subordinate, and it looks like there's maybe 2 to 3 feet of room for that eave to come down to like window height, if that could help. But I think it was Joe who mentioned, you know, the abyss giving the opportunity for the volume that they're looking for without going up above grade. And in the section that I think is a little bit lower down, you can see how that's cut in and sort of banked. And I would imagine that that would be, yeah, here it comes, the east elevation. You can sort of see how there would be stairs and landings and landscaping that would sort of bank into there. This does feel very cookie cutter as far as how much is, you know, just the same thing repeated, especially along the roadside, that would be the most visible is, you know, basically the same building 4 times, you know, maybe in mirror image, but basically the same thing. So I think, you know, some variation would be valuable. But also I feel like the landscaping is going to be huge. I'm seeing a lot of, you know, room for mature trees between buildings so that you don't feel like you're looking in a mirror when you're in these buildings and driving through there. If all of them were just left, you know, without any landscaping, this I think would just be a nightmare. So that's part of what I'm thinking could help mitigate things. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
I think individually as a building, it's okay. They've put in some effort for some massing changes, some different forms that you find on Nantucket. I think if they had given as much effort to all the buildings in, you know, a variety rather than just slapping them all down, take this one here, put this one here, flip this one upside down, this one's there, twist it, turn it, it would be way more successful. I do not think standing seam roofs would be a great idea because these will be very visible from everywhere and we're gonna get a million applications for such if we allow that. I think the siding is an issue. I really wonder what the siding is for each piece. I think too much variety in that can be really, yeah, really bizarre. And I know why people do it, but I also don't think it's that great of an idea for keeping things subtle and quiet. The height, obviously, it would be great to bring some of it down. The second floor decks, I don't understand them at all. And I wish that maybe if they did have to have some of that, they could embed them in shed roofs. And give, you know, more, I don't know, typical detail, because really second floor decks on buildings like these, I think that's not useless. They're all looking at each other. I guess that's it for now. Those are main concerns.
Okay, I guess my thoughts are, you know, rule, feel, and obviously large masses are complicated by this programmatic necessity for size. And I think that's problematic for the reasons stated, including the lack of diversity. It's going to be siting that's going to be overly dense for scale at these structures. My thoughts are typically this would be more successful when you have models and of different structure, of the number of structures, say for instance, 7 structures. They're simpler structures. It allows you then to, for instance, on a 4-bay, put a covered porch on the front to, instead of clapboard, you then can go, with a shingled front, change the feel, reorient it on the site. Add a gable addition to one side or an L off the back and so on and so forth. And I think with simpler masses reminiscent of Sconset and simpler Nantucket typical reminiscent of Sconset and Mattocket, Pleasant Street, so on and so forth, that is also successful here. I think it's going to be difficult to be successful. I would link this to Richmond in that sense. They think they had 4 or 5 models. It's very apparent that they are. However, for what it is, I think we did a very good job, which is why I kind of regret this isn't coming before us. I think driving through there quite frequently, I think we did, and the architects did a very good job through the HDC and turning that into more of a feel of a Nantucket set of structures. Colors are still gonna be wicked important here. Landscaping, also incredibly important. One item we haven't discussed, it's not on, I didn't bring it up at site plans, is utilities. There's gonna be a tremendous, they're gonna need a lot of utility space on the ground for this, which makes me, want to, put a plug in for mansard roofs. Like at the hospital, and I'm gonna get a bumper sticker that says mansards for solar. Because you can also put the solar up there, all the AC units can be up there. But I mention that because the height of these structures is, I think, obviously driven by the width. As you're looking at these, and then, you have this really, I mean, it's not fenestrated, that isn't usable 3rd floor space. So the attic is just dead space where a mansard style roof would, I think, be overwhelming if widely used. But it would be the most effective way to address height and utilities that we're not really weighing in on the site that are gonna have a detrimental effect outside HDC purview, noise and so on and so forth. And it would give you the ability to add solar, which I think would be a tremendous amount of square footage here, which could be a big benefit, since the wind turbines don't have an extension cords in Nantucket. Okay, how about the next one? I got a feeling these are gonna start to be rinse and repeat comments.
They are.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm starting to get like an overall impression of what the important things, a lot of you just mentioned, frankly, that would.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The things that. I was wondering whether you.
I just meant that.
Okay, no, but you pointed out some things like there are just overarching things for the complex in general. Because I think, as I look at these, I go, it's like the massing and so forth is actually not so bad, but I think there's some things that in general need to be taken care of that would be the difference between a successful and a failure in this project.
And I'll take that opportunity to encourage the applicants to come to the HDC for some specifics on a very slow Tuesday. Is this the, did we go to the, all right, 2? No, this is the second page. This is the next one,
They're really fairly similar.
right? Yeah, or no, this is,
That's B.
that's still.
There's A1 and B.
Those are the 3,
Yeah,
plus the.
the community building.
It's huge.
Yeah,
For me, not having any sort of located entry into someone's unit or home is bugging me.
Yeah, it's gonna look like a bunch of monopoly
Hotels.
houses scattered around.
Yeah,
And they're all at different heights and there's some
I
nice
think
scale
like
to
the
some of them.
hardscaping will tell you where to go for your
Yeah.
door, but you won't
That's true.
see it. It's not apparent in
Right.
the architecture.
And I got a
It's
feeling
gonna be all-
programmatically, what's gonna happen is you're going into these are separate buildings with separate units, so you're going in and there's a foyer. So the doors at the bottom are probably a foyer space, the doors on the left are probably a foyer
Mhm.
space, so that you go in and then, I'm not suggesting I like it, I'm just
Yeah.
explaining that I think that maybe it's not typical Nantucket, but these aren't typical Nantucket uses, and we
Well, what
don't
it,
have this density in this type of structure anywhere.
what it seems to do is it
That's
seems to
fine.
make one building and it's elusive. You don't have 25 front doors
Yeah.
in one building, which is actually a good thing. I
Yeah.
don't think you really want to see the fact that these are buildings for 25 families per building. I think that doesn't really bother me that much.
But I think it goes to Ray's point, though, that there are some things that could be modified, but they don't have to do like a wholesale change.
Yeah,
Like-
for me, it's
Yeah.
just the roofing, the colors, the sheathing. And maybe some details like porch roofs instead of matticat decks, that kind of thing, like literally, it's just some of the materials and a few forms, but the
Okay,
repetitive is what's so annoying.
This
Joe,
is
your
really-
thoughts? Yeah.
No.
The next
You
one.
just see
I mean,
how-
we've kind of got, I'm just kind of going around the room.
No,
make sure I hit everybody.
I think you touched on the one simple element that could address the street and also give some variety between the massing of the buildings, even if the same design is repeated, and that's the use of the porches here and there. I think that would be hugely helpful, and not to mention the fact that they're just engaging. I think that would be helpful. But I don't have any other comments to add that haven't been mentioned. There's a lot of gang windows on some of these for sure. I'm guessing that that is an attempt to, well, I don't see the floor plans, but to give some natural light into these spaces in a way that keeps it as simple as possible on the exterior. So, but I do see a lot of ganged windows.
Thank you, Angus, then Connie, then Val, and then Holly, and then Ray.
I'm liking the mention about porches rather than just the freestanding decks. And I agree about the entry to these places because there are so many units that and they can't all be accessed from one place. So they're going to be kind of just spread around. Like in this elevation up now, the north elevation, what looks, correct is that far right side where you've got like a real door. But yeah, the rest are French doors and so forth. And I do think it's a really good point about the mechanicals, with all these buildings being so shoehorned in and tight. I think that mechanicals and solar especially need to not be afterthoughts. Like that needs to be part of the plan from the beginning, so it makes sense.
Thanks,
That's it.
Angus. And Joe, Connie?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. That's what, that's already been mentioned. Same concerns, same thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Val, did you want to follow up?
Just with a final thought, I was looking back at the many iterations and many different architects we've had come through on this, and in 2018, Design Associates did a concept, and what to me was successful about that was on the street, the first half of the development was individual houses.
Mm.
They weren't huge, they were just basic houses, and then the large condo complex buildings were all pushed to the back of the lot. And that to me seemed more in keeping with that area. You don't go by and see ginormous buildings. Even Sherburne Commons is tucked back behind. I know there's a junkyard down there, but I just felt that was a more sensitive approach, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Ray?
Okay, so I'm doing up my list right now. Of what I think, sir, and look, a lot of this is gonna be completely repeated. It's repetition of what's been said. So I'm thinking about, the overall things. Given that the architecture, like the massing to me, is actually feeling okay. Muted colors, I think, because of the size of the project is very, very important. I also think, given the comments about sort of the repetitive nature of, we've got these 3 prototypes plus clubhouse. The idea of introducing a 4th prototype, that would be another riff on what we've already looked at, might be something worth investigating. I think the landscape is so important to this, and the idea of having mature trees. Every time I go into the Stop and Shop, I look at the poor pathetic little, I think they're cherry trees, and they're suffering. They're not being paid attention to. If those things were like full, the way that they would have been in the artist's rendering of the Stop and Shop when we saw it, it would feel different. Not that I have huge objections to Stop and Shop, but I mean, it would be so much better if the landscape was actually a vital part of it. So that's something that should be paid serious attention to. I did want to make note of the fact, and I was going to say this, the first one, credit where credit is due. Richmond, they put in as few windows as they possibly can for cost reasons. Here, we could say, oh, well, they're getting windows, but hey, listen, they're windows, and I like that. I'm not sure that I like 6 French doors all ganged up together, but I do like the fact that they're in each one of those apertures, there's a lot more money than in a shingled wall. And so what I'm seeing is some effort is being made to humanize this by adding those elements that we all can relate to, windows and doors. So, okay, maybe we back off on it a little bit, but I'd rather start with more and go to less than have less and beg for more. And then number 5, which probably should have been number 1, is, boy, if they could lose a building out of there and just give us a little bit more space, because right now it's just like cookie cutter is the perfect word. You roll out a sheet of dough and you try and maximize the number of things that you can get out of it. And then you have as little residual leftover space as possible. And that's exactly what we're all looking at on that site plan.
Thanks.
Can we go back to the site plan for a second? Yeah.
And just, can I follow up on that comment? I think this goes to the comment I think Carrie made and everyone has said about diversity, is that, I understand when you're laying out these subdivisions, you've got roadways, and I mean, look, if you look at the middle of the left of the lower portion, you've got buildings that are mirror images of one another.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with this is that, but the problem with this also is that there isn't a diversity, and in a pattern language, if you're looking at this pattern, it's not only of building to building, it's the massing. So if they were to instead, and this goes to, I was thinking of it from Ray's comment about losing a building, if perhaps a third of these buildings were broken into 2, and one half, if you're gonna use halves or thirds, were downsized, then you have some ability to manipulate the orientation, you have some ability to manipulate the roof masses, and you can start to create something that could be very much more successful, I think, because it's addressing those overarching concerns that we've keep bringing up as individuals and as a commission.
How many
Carrie?
units are there?
I don't know. Carrie, did you you asked for the site plan?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to see this again because I was concerned about that exact one that you were pulling up because it reads as a wall as you're going by. And it's almost like they're trying to be very grand and welcoming and all that, but it's actually, that's not a Nantucket thing, like to have.
It's a Soviet bloc, right?
You know, it's something, I don't know, but, yeah, it's just the density and, yeah, the repetitive
All right.
qualities.
All right, let's go to the next.
The old, the South Shore Drive elevation, I think we should focus on a little bit,
No, these are, yeah, I think we looked at all of them.
yeah.
Oh, I thought there was one more. Oh, I guess I was just wishing there was one more.
Well, they had them all in a row on that
Yeah.
one package,
Yeah,
you know? And now, then they broke them up into individual packages with
So
many.
here are your
many-
floor plans.
yeah. Well, hopefully someone is listening to us and, we'll get a couple little modifications in edgewise and.
What's their process, do you know? Cause
They don't have to
they
listen to
could
us
be
at all.
completely
Yeah.
done. I don't
These
know if they have
comments-
ideas about some of the things.
Yeah, our comments are gonna go back to
The ZBA.
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 ZBA will review them and I presume they'll take them to heart. When I was saying, I'm hoping we can get some concepts in edgewise is, it's really up to the developer at this point, I think, based on how the posturing is in the case. I don't really know. I don't wanna get into that. There's nothing that says they need to take the developer needs to take.
Even
our-
for like the standing seam roofs, like,
Well, and they
there's
have-
certain things that,
Barn
These are
board
better.
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
These
gonna-
are clear.
Well, you know, Lisa is
Right,
on the ZBA, and so I'm looking at it from those eyes as well, and it's like, okay, we report to the ZBA at an advisory level,
Mhm.
and the ZBA is working at an advisory.
Yeah, it's.
You know, they can't mandate anything, so, you know,
well, they
They're not
can,
gonna
but the
mercy.
state could overrule
state could totally.
them, so there,
State
it's-
Yeah.
stops.
there's a governor.
So,
So we're totally at their mercy.
yeah, you know, I mean, we do what we can do, right?
And I mean, I know one of the developers is a Nantucketer, is the other?
Yeah.
Jamie's,
He's a
you know, Jamie
Nantucketer.
Feely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John
And then,
Faulkner is,
yeah.
he's out.
Oh, okay, so they both are in, so, okay.
And I
They're
mean,
not coming from left field.
The-
No,
no, and I mean, one of the other 40Bs they did, is,
yeah.
Beach Plum.
And that was good.
Off Rugged
Yeah.
Road, and I mean, very successful
Yeah,
in
that
every
was-
regard in terms of,
But individual homes.
yeah, but it's a different, it's a different,
Is that on steroids?
yeah.
So as an appeal to their sensibility of being Nantucketers, a list of things like the roofing would make a big difference, or the
I-
porches.
Well, they're gonna see our list.
For cost, maybe
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
go for it,
They're gonna see our list.
but I think everything for them comes down to cost, obviously.
Okay,
I don't know.
hey guys, sorry,
No,
did we
go
already,
ahead.
did we already look at this?
Yes, these are just now,
They're better.
more
quality.
detailed with each of the three
Oh,
types.
okay,
I just don't
because,
remember this detail.
okay,
Was it-
so what this appears to me, if we are getting a little bit more granular here, this is that classic thing that we've had to deal with so many times out at Richmond, where the distance from grade to the first floor windows is
Minimal.
minimal.
Mhm.
The distance between the top of the bottom, the first floor windows and the bottom of the second floor windows is a lot. And the distance from the second floor windows to the eave, again, is a
Mhm.
lot. So it's almost like this whole thing could get cleaned up. Yeah, Holly just did it. You take the whole window order and you just go dink and you
Or you
raise.
lower the heights, it's a
Or you lower the
9-7
height.
first floor and an
Yeah.
8-7 second floor.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean,
That's what they're
physically,
doing to
this
make it
is
look-
not,
Yeah.
I mean, your first floor windowsills are gonna be 6 inches off the floor.
Mhm.
If you, because your shingle line isn't gonna go to grade, so you're gonna lose 6 inches there. And then you got a foot for your floor system, the top of your finished sill on your first floor is gonna be like 6 inches above the floor. I think this whole facade is off, I think it literally is that the heights are
So
wrong.
these are not working drawings, these are
No.
like preliminary, because this can't be what they intend to build.
No, they have electrical plans and
Like,
everything.
how can
Well,
that
this isn't
be?
the first time I've seen this happen, and this usually happens when you're doing slab on grade, which I'm sure this is.
Yeah.
But with the lower level? They're doing lower levels.
Okay, well, right, so. I can't speak. I'm guessing.
I just
I'm
see
looking
three
over at the
layers.
thing.
Can you zoom in a little? I'm just seeing 3 layers of shingles there. Is there 4 at the bottom, under the first floor window?
It's the same above as it is below. It's like
1, 2,
the
3.
build a grade and
Yeah.
then the header
Three.
to.
It's actually more above than it is below.
So that's
Yeah.
18 inches.
Yeah,
Roughly.
so something's not quite right. I think we should just mention that.
Yeah, maybe mention, you know, at the very least, verify your, sill heights and header heights are traditional for
Yeah,
your fenestration.
No, I can't pull it up.
Very odd.
it just makes you wonder, like, what are they gonna be building from?
Maybe there's a mud block.
Like,
And the other thing I would say is,
maybe.
I mean, this is very granular, but now that we're looking at it blowing up. Pargeted stucco,
Mhm, those
oversized
chimneys.
chimneys
Yeah.
are really not gonna be,
Yes.
just a simple traditional brick.
That's not showing standing seam roof either, so that's.
No, there's
there's-
a note.
Yeah, it says asphalt.
Asphalt
Or metal.
Oh, or standing seam roof.
Right there.
Frankly, I'm surprised we don't see more metal. I mean, with the stretch and the energy efficiency of the roof, it's.
And they're good
coming.
looking, but it's just not a
Coming.
typical Nantucket
I know, but
roof, so
for
it's.
people that make their stretch doors, it's gonna be happening before you know it.
Yeah, because some idiots changed the code.
I'm not going there.
Mm.
Okay, so let's zoom back out, literally and figuratively, and see where we stand. I think,
On other ones.
does anyone have concerns, either here in the room or on the Zoom that we haven't touched on? The comment period doesn't close at the end of the meeting. If you want to submit something to Holly, please do. And
Pass this to
that can
Holly.
be either general or
I can
specific.
send it.
Chip, I see your hand, just a sec.
That's all they're
I think you guys have consensus on all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Holly, did you have any other comments you want to add while we're here?
No, but I do think that you guys have found consensus within your concerns.
Very much so.
Yeah.
No. Chip, did you want to comment?
No, I didn't want to comment. I just had a quick question are these drawings available somewhere, for, online I didn't see them on the agenda, like on a packet or anything, so.
They came directly from ZBA. So ZBA actually will have them on there. It's just duplicated efforts with staff. That's all. That's the only reason why.
Yeah.
Got it. So I would reach out to ZBA to get copies, Holly?
Billy Sad, yes, please.
Great, that was my only question, thanks.
And I'm sorry, your name is?
I'm Darla.
I'm sorry, Chip Webster for the record.
Oh, no, Chip, sorry, there's. But good to know.
Oh, there's someone in the room, Jim.
Okay, if you had any comments, I didn't want to leave you out.
I think it is funny if they all look the same. I was thinking about,
Oh,
the young sot that got drunk and walked into the wrong house.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Oh,
Gonna have them all over the
lost.
place here.
which year? But every year it seems to happen, it's like we got here. So I just wanted to point out, I mean, look at this cross section. I'm just crying for mansard roofs.
Mm-hmm.
Mansards for solar. Look at that third floor space. I
Yeah.
mean, it's dramatic, it's wonderful, but there's a tremendous amount of square footage that's just wasted if some of this were utilized for roof space utilities.
And the way the elevations are drawn with the window headers, with so much roof above them, and they're not using it as mechanical space.
Well,
They're
no,
actually
no.
livable space, it's gotta be like,
Wait,
Like,
say
they're
that?
not all gonna.
well, if you scroll down again or or.
Well, wait,
whichever
before you
direction.
scroll, so they're using a mud sill, so that addresses the
Right.
height of the window sills. Now, Carrie, what were you saying?
Well, if you go back to the elevation and you see so much, well, you can see it in the section, there's quite a lot of wall above the window headers.
Yeah.
And that's showing a cathedral ceiling.
Yeah.
So you don't need, if you're having cathedral ceilings, you don't need all that wall above the window
Okay,
hedge. You can drop them so
I
much.
can guarantee you that that's not gonna be cathedral space.
Well,
They're
they
gonna
should
put
draw it
mechanicals
the
up
way they're gonna build it then.
They're,
It's
yeah,
really-
because they're not gonna be able to use main
Deceptive.
splits everywhere. they're gonna have to, I don't know.
Plus,
It'll be
you know, I
interesting.
mean, all that cathedral space would cost an unbelievable fortune to heat and cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That can't possibly be what their intention
Which
is.
was amazes me when I go into homes and they've got, 20-foot ceilings and,
Yeah.
I don't know how to even stretch.
The meters go.
Yeah, the extension cord's getting hot to the mainland. It's a good thing it's under the cooling effect of the ocean.
Okay, so
Okay.
this one's drawn a little more normally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that, I think that's, just a practical one that hopefully they're gonna look at is the concept of header heights and stuff. Most people probably, right, that's, we don't notice what it is we notice, but that could be one that people who don't do this all the time notice.
Yeah.
The other thing is that their masses are pretty much equally wide. So if they don't raise a plate on one of them, they're all gonna be,
Yeah,
their ridge heights are all gonna be very much the same. And here they are quite similar. But at least in these, the main mass and the right mass. But if they didn't change any plate height, you'd have like straight across the board.
yeah, that kind of goes to the
Sun
pattern.
is doing it.
That goes to the pattern comment I was making earlier and why it would be beneficial to. And Ray's comment of losing a few structures is to break them up into smaller structures, because you are literally gonna have an eave. That if you stood at one end of the site and looked down the road, it's gonna, in a way, it's gonna be like a suburban layout with ranches. That have been made larger and they've got things sticking out of them.
just really.
But it's all gonna be this really homogeneous look, and that's so not typical unless it's. Main Street with three bricks and even then it's.
Even then, it's not.
Yeah.
the same at all,
Minimized.
Yeah.
So like 3 or 4 structures in a row.
Just to sort
So
of.
to Val's
Ooh.
point about the earlier iteration from Design Associates of having smaller, like single homes or something along the street, I'm thinking about the big impacts that will be seen regularly. So, the views that you'll have from from South Shore Road, but also up the the main entry into this development. And right now those buildings seem to be really close to the street.
There's
Yeah.
one with a lot.
Yeah, Angus, we actually touched on that at the beginning. Good point, but we did touch on that and I think it made it to the notes.
Good.
Okay, does anyone else have anything they want to add? It's 4:34 and I think we're done.
Yeah.
Holly,
Did you
you're.
already
you've
talk
been-
about the overall heights? Yeah, it's 9.5 feet floor to
Yes.
floor.
Yes.
So
Yeah, the comment on that, Angus, was we would much prefer that they be shorter overall in height and that there also be diversity.
Okay, hang on, so I misunderstood. It's not a 9.5 foot ceiling on the first floor, it's a 9.5 floor to floor.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you allow for a little bit over a foot of framing, at least.
so that's
No.
8.5 ceiling.
Floor to ceiling, and then the framing.
Can we go to the cross section and zoom in on the heights?
Okay, because the 9.5 as a first floor ceiling is way too tall.
Yeah,
Way too tall, but if it is actually a floor to floor, then that's okay, because that's resulting in something just over an 8 foot ceiling.
can you zoom in a little bit?
Let me see.
Yeah, if you subtract the 10-foot
Second floor,
7.5
first floor, 10
from the
foot
20 foot.
7. Yeah, we're sort of somewhere in between,
Mhm.
so it's 9.5 feet floor to floor. Yeah, 9.5 feet floor to floor.
And then
Which-
7 on the second floor.
Hold on, let me just clarify this. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but 20 foot 2 minus 10.7 is 9.5.
It's gonna be 9'4".
Yeah.
No, it's gonna be an 8.5 foot finished ceiling on the first floor. 8.5 feet,
Look at the door.
not 9.5 feet.
Right.
Yeah, look at the
So-
door height
This-
versus
this-
the ceiling height. It's less than.
It's 8.5
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your 1 foot 2 inches or so is there in the floor sandwich.
Yeah.
So that's not, there's not a lot of wiggle room there.
And does anybody have any concern about the overall height?
Yeah, we've
Except for-
stayed.
So it looks like
Okay.
the second
Yeah.
floor could come
Yeah.
down a little bit,
Yeah,
Oh.
that's overarching
or the
concern
top
was
floor.
the height and diversity and that, how that relates to the perception of the subdivision as a whole and building to building,
And materials.
colors, materials, fenestration, selections, and traditional header locations. And all the other wonderful things we discussed.
There are two, right?
Well, yeah.
Isn't that
Here's-
like,
The commercial code for a stretch is way different than what it's
Yeah.
like, it's gotta do
It's like hell out.
a Teddy's, these are things are gonna be, they're gonna be well, they're gonna be stretched to the stretch. Okay,
All right.
anything else?
No.
How about a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And we'll take the 5 in the room, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye Connie.
Yeah,
Thanks
bye.
Angus.